Hey everyone, welcome to the Next Play podcast, a podcast where I'll be going deep with incredible people who have made big career moves recently to dive into their journeys and learn from them. This week we have Rajiv joining us. Rajiv is the CEO of Tandem. Previously he was the CEO of Tandem, a virtual office. He studied bioengineering at Princeton and worked at Fairchild and Yahoo before that. Before we hop into our episode, I wanted to thank Gelt for sponsoring this episode. Gelt specializes in providing comprehensive tax solutions for businesses and their owners. They'll help you and your business manage and optimize your taxes. I've actually been a Gelt customer for a few years now, and I've been super happy with their services. They've saved me a ton of money and a lot of headaches, so I would definitely recommend checking it out. Go to joingelt.com/nextplay and make sure to let them know NextPlay sent you. They'll also give you 15% off your first year. All right, let's get started with our episode with Rajiv. Hey Rajiv, great to have you here with us today.
Great to be here. Good to see you.
Awesome. So I'm super excited to talk through your journey and hear about your next play and kind of how you went through things. So to kick it off, I know you were a YC founder and raised around when remote was the hot thing. And can you talk a little bit about what your experience was like as a founder?
Remote actually wasn't the hot thing when we raised around. So I started in with two co-founders in 2018. Actually, we launched a crypto project on Product Hunt, and that did quite well to the point where we all decided to jump into a company full time. And as often happens, we reached a wall. We couldn't figure out how to make money. We pivoted several times. And in kind of the beginning of 2019, both my co-founders, they each had kids. And so we started working remotely, and we didn't feel like a team anymore. So we tried every tool out there, and eventually started building our own tools to like connect and collaborate better remotely. And that several iterations later led to this product Tandem, a virtual office. And that's what we went through YC with. So when we had the raise, it was in the batch, we launched on Product Hunt. That was the first time we really tapped into an audience of remote teams, because at that point, people were really skeptical about remote work. A lot of people thought that remote companies were going to be asynchronous because the few high-profile remote companies then, Zapier, GitLab, were really heavy on asynchronous collaboration. And so basically nobody believed people would talk in remote teams. But yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. I remember Tandem being kind of one of the standout companies from YC. Was it before COVID or was this during COVID?
Yeah, it was before COVID. It was like several months before COVID. It's like June, July. We launched on Product Hunt 2019.
Interesting. So it was before remote was all the rage.
Yeah. But we definitely we hit something. Like Product Hunt was the real unlock for us. We started finding just all of these remote teams and remote companies that we didn't know. It was the first time it wasn't friends and family using the product. And they were sending us feedback, and they were, they really seemed to take to the product. So yeah, that was a crazy time. We'd raised a round before for the crypto project. It took like 3 months, and we had like 30 or 40 rejections, and raised like a small pre-seed. But that raise was like, if anybody's had a hot raise, it was 10 days from start to finish. We felt like total unknowns at the beginning. And then by the end, it was just like a lot of pressure from a lot of different parties. Very strange experience.
And did you, like, before you started this company, did you know you wanted to be a founder? Like, how did you decide to start this?
I'd always wanted to start a company. I think that's an interesting question. So my dad's a founder. Like, he's been doing startups since the 90s. He's still got a startup. And so I think I always just thought of starting companies as a job like any other. But I did originally think I wanted to work in bioengineering because I was really, really into biology, like in school. But that didn't happen. And eventually I found my way to software and tech.
Got it. Got it. And so where did kind of things land with Tandem? And I know you ended up joining Dropbox as an EIR. How did that kind of come through?
We had quite a ride during the pandemic. Went up a lot. There was a point where it seemed like the whole world wanted what we were building, and we just had to make it work and make it reliable. And then there was a point where we felt like it was working, and the teams that were using it were really, really happy, but we no longer could sense the market. We could no longer find the market, and what that looked like was doing um, a lot of different growth experiments, and not really being able to find meaningful growth. So what we did was, um, we the short version is, we try to pivot, we explore different offers for acquisition, but nothing seems to really make sense. And in the end, two engineers on our team, actually, Billy and Akash, pitched us on keeping it independent. So we gave the company to them, and they've been running it since. There's still a couple hundred teams using Tandem. Actually, Product Hunt, we're using Tandem, and it's maybe an unusual way to end, but it's kind of nice that it's still around, still delivering a lot of value for a lot of companies.
Yeah, that is a really interesting outcome. And how do you then land at Dropbox from there?
So while it wasn't like technically a shutdown, it definitely felt like a shutdown scenario. It was like end of runway, and it was definitely pretty rough at the end. So I took about 6 months off, and actually just kind of switched from spending a lot of time and energy on startup to going to rock climbing, which is a passion of mine. And so I had this climbing project, and I got a coach, and I started training and just went headlong into that. It's like my calendar was still full. It was just with training related activities and not with work related activities. Um, and then beginning of 2023, I started looking around for, okay, what's my next thing going to be? And it was pretty rough. I didn't know. I remember having a conversation with one of our former investors where I just said, hey, what am I good for? Like, I think as a founder, you're a really unusual shape. You're not the same shape you were when you came in to starting the company. And for me, when I started Tandem, I'd just done I'd moved from data science to product. I'd done a little bit of product work, but hadn't worked at a larger company in a product capacity. I hadn't done many, I just didn't have a lot of experience. And so a lot of my experience was shaped by Tandem. And so it wasn't obvious to me like where I fit. And I also wasn't exactly sure what I was looking for. And so for a few months, I just had a bunch of conversations with different people and explored different options and tried to find like, well, what am I most excited about? And what also what's available to me? Like, where do people think I could be useful? And yeah, I found some interesting things, which we could double click on. But yeah, it was
Yeah, let's
definitely,
double click.
yeah, let's do it. Let's see. One thing, just for other people who are in that mode, there are a number of ways you could go about it. But what I did was I just made a list of like about 50 people I really wanted to work with, regardless of company, stage, role, anything, and just started talking with them. And first of all, half of them weren't hiring or didn't have anything meaningful. So, it's not a very efficient way in terms of finding a role that's good for you, but it was fun because I got to like reconnect with a lot of people that I found really inspiring. And I did get like, I think that the conversations were always very, very interesting. So I kind of, I guess, prefer that approach to maybe being a little bit more systematic and applying to jobs. One thing I found was, and Tandem, for context, was about 17 people, and we didn't hire any product managers. So there was I was looking for a few different things. I didn't want to start a company immediately for reasons that we can get to. Um, so I was kind of looking at, okay, maybe lead product at a smaller company, or um, maybe like a director level role at a larger company. And I found it was very difficult to get the like director level roles at larger companies. I think just the shape that I had, or the experience that I had, was really hard to fit into that box. I think one point I remember quite well is I didn't get past the recruiter screen for an Airbnb PM position, and that was really surprising and a little bit ego bruising. But I think in that case, it just wasn't a good fit for my experience. Um, and then, um, yeah, sorry, I'm getting a little bit lost. What train of thought were we at? I'm trying to like compress a lot into.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean I mean I think this is all really helpful, and I think inevitably these conversations, it's a lot to reflect on, and and I
Yeah,
think it's really great to just be sharing this publicly because it's there's not a lot of content and people talking about this publicly about these experiences and feelings after starting a company, after leaving a company, right? It's
yeah.
not easy.
Maybe I'll talk about like there's some things that were really hard, and then some things that were really almost freeing or like fun to discover. So some things that were hard, I had no interview experience, no meaningful interview experience. It was like a lot of work to get ramped up on product interviews and like higher level product interviews. And I had some interviewing trauma. Like I get nervous during interviews. So that was just really, really tough to like, interviewing is so different from actually running a company or building product. It took me a little while to get comfortable with it. Um, Another thing that was tough was figuring out where I fit and how to tell, how to fit my experience to the job, both in terms of how I told the story and also in terms of like, do I think I could do this? Do I think I could really do this job, or do I think I'd be excited about the job? So, um, yeah. And then of course, like, oh, another really big thing, I think when we shut down, the story in my head for Tandem was basically one of failure. And so it was, it took me like a little bit of time and a little bit of distance to like be able to appreciate the things we did and see it a little bit more clearly. At the time, like all I could think about were, the few things that we hadn't been able to unlock, and like where I might have gone wrong. That's not a really helpful place for interviewing or moving forward. Um, so what this looked like more concretely is I saw some uh, pitch decks that I made for when we were looking at acquisition or acquihire 6 months later when I was applying to jobs. And I could just tell they were made by somebody who was just really feeling down. Like it was so obvious to me from looking at those materials. It's so much of a mental shift can happen in like 6 months. A big piece of that, honestly, was writing a pretty lengthy and pretty vulnerable shutdown post with some help from my co-founders. I found that pretty therapeutic, like just as a way to process what happened. Um, would highly recommend that, even if you don't share it publicly. Let's see. The
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and so I guess ultimately, like you ended up spending some time in an EIR role. How did you
yeah.
kind of land? How did you land there?
So then the good things, the things that were really positive, I knew a lot of people that I didn't know before because I talked with them, through partnerships or friends from YC, or in the case of Drew at Dropbox, like we talked to them for acquisition, which didn't work out. But I felt like there was some shared vision there. And so one of the people I reached out to without any real expectation that there would be a role was Drew. And so we talked, and it seemed like they still had a really interesting take on collaboration, and they were like spinning up this new products group. And so um, I think an uh, like an EIR role looks very different at each company. It like means something different everywhere. In this case, they were basically have kind of like an internal YC with little teams, with little startup teams working on products, sometimes related to core Dropbox, sometimes quite independent. Um, and uh, yeah, so that conversation kind of led to me coming on board to work on a project.
Cool. Was there like an interview process, or was it just chatting with with the founder?
Oh, there was an interview process, and uh, it was pretty lengthy too, and like pretty stressful. I think it was not unreasonable, but it was definitely there were parts of the interview that were um, maybe not related to like the types of things I'd be doing, because I was essentially operating as like a founder with a really, really small team, building a project. Um, and the interview process had a lot of flavors of, a lot of classic elements for like being a product leader at a big company.
Yeah, got it. And so I guess what was your time like at Dropbox? How did that go?
It was really interesting. I let's see. Um, Really interesting. Very glad I went. I didn't intend to stay for as short as I did. When I got the ping from Ryan Hoover about Product Hunt, it was just one of those opportunities that I think doesn't open up many times in one's lifetime. And Drew is very understanding. He said, of course, it would be good to kind of finish the swing on the project, but Product Hunt's a special company. So a lot of gratitude towards Drew. Um, Time at Dropbox, doing innovation in a large company is fundamentally hard. And I think that in some ways, Dropbox was uniquely positioned to do it. And in some ways, they had some of the same challenges that every big company has. The unique things that were a real draw, and I'm really glad I experienced them, were being able to work with Drew. Like Drew is coding, like he's in founder mode, and he is pretty active in like working with the new products. And also, to some degree, the new products have a lot of latitude and kind of independence in how they explore projects. And that allows you to like iterate pretty quickly and explore different things. The things that are difficult at a big company are, there's like organizational things and cultural things. And when I zoom out, this was really helpful for me to see, because I like building software for businesses, and I just hadn't been in a large company since Yahoo like 10 years ago. So it was interesting for me to see. But yeah, like culturally, you'll encounter a lot of people who are not really startup people, and it's like hard to understand like what they're optimizing for sometimes. And then organizationally, like there were maybe 2 or 1.5 reorgs in the first few months I was there, for reasons that like, initially I had this story of, oh, this is a bad thing that's happening, or like this is a good thing that's happening. But as I got to know the people, like it was less black and white to me. It's like, yeah, these are people optimizing for different things, trying to solve a fundamentally hard organizational problem. So I don't know that I had any like judgment on what happened, but it definitely was a bit chaotic and certainly pretty distracting for a lot of the teams. When I zoom out, like I think what was really interesting was because I wasn't that attached to the more traditional like promotion path. I was more looking to like create a project with big impact and grow with that, or like create a project, get some traction, and then if there's like a natural time, like leave and start the next thing. I felt less attached to I felt less like attached to the politics. I hesitate to use the word, but and so I just felt like I could learn more about what works or doesn't work, like in large organizations. Um, so yeah, I found it really, really valuable. It was very different from running a startup. Um,
So I'm sure.
if you climb at all, like an analogy, oh, I don't know if I should. Oh, okay, I'll share. Yeah, so um, doing a doing a new startup or a project in a larger company feels like indoor rock climbing to me versus outdoor rock climbing. Like it's challenging, but it's a little different. The challenge is a little different. There's like a tinge of like, well, how do you, how do you make it fit with the advantage of the large organization? How do you work within the framework there? Um, they're both challenging, but they're like kind of different sports.
Got it. So you spent some time there, and then you got an email from Ryan Hoover, and that, I guess that brought you to your next and latest play, Product Hunt, most recently. What what happened after you got this email?
Um, it was a Twitter DM, and
Okay.
uh, I just it wasn't. I just thought probably going to take this. It was kind of an emotional reaction. I think that I've launched 7 things on Product Hunt, and it changed my life. It's like a big reason why I started the company with uh, my co-founders, and it also felt like there's a lot of potential there. So I just felt like, yeah, I'm probably going to take this. And then there's a process of like trying to understand like what was going on. Why did Ash, the previous CEO, want to move on? And like I checked in with her and kind of understood where she was. Um, and it was definitely like stepping in as a non-founding CEO is a weird thing that I've never experienced before. I got a lot of advice from people who'd stepped in as CEO of other companies, mostly later stage companies, I think, based on the people I was connected with, but it was really helpful.
Yes. Was there anything surprising, like, since joining?
So some things were really familiar. Like I just knew from the outside that Product Hunt's just amazing for launching. Like when you launch there, uh, you're probably going to get some feedback. Worst case, you're going to get some interesting feedback, but the upside is uncapped, right? Like it can really start a fire for your company in like a good way. The thing that was surprising was how, since Product Hunt's been around for a while and has this huge like catalog of products and this huge community, people are really trying to use it to hunt for products, for lack of a better term, like to find products that for a category or for a need, or like help me find an app that does X. And honestly, we're pretty bad at it. And I think that's a big opportunity. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Anything that's like top of mind as you're kind of thinking about the future of Product Hunt and where you want to go as CEO?
Um, yeah. Well, first of all, the community stuff we've been doing, I'm really excited by. Started hosting open demo nights. It has like a real kind of grassroots feel, like kind of, yeah, just people demoing at all stages of their project and getting instant feedback from the audience. So that's been kind of cool. And then, um, I don't want to, yeah, I guess I don't want to share too much, but the there's something that doesn't quite exist on Product Hunt yet, which is love, like something that's very unique in the early stage of products, and the stage at which products are just getting product market fit is that they can really over deliver in a way that causes people to just feel a lot of love for these products. I mean, that was the case with Notion in the early days. That's certainly the case with like Linear and other apps that people talk about now. And I think there's a way to um, kind of harness that and enhance that with Product Hunt.
Yeah, totally. I mean, my time at Notion, like Product Hunt was something that came up time and again for anything new we were launching, for all the templates people started creating and launching on Product Hunt. It was a really incredible thing to see. And I know Notion's original launch on Product Hunt was like a huge moment for Notion, and really was the catalyst for Notion getting to where it is today. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember that early launch.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any like areas on Product Hunt these days that are just getting like the most love, you think?
The most love in terms of like from the community
Like
or from
product, yeah, like product categories that you think are just like getting the most traction, most love, most adoption on Product Hunt?
yeah, I was digging into the data a little bit. I'll probably share more, but as you could imagine, like AI and AI related products, both infrastructure and end user apps are getting a ton of traction. But maybe something that people don't know is productivity is still our number one category. It's still a huge thing. And of course, sales and marketing tools like close behind that. So yeah, I think the hot areas, AI infra and AI powered products, dev tools, productivity, sales and marketing. But there's a long tail of interesting products like that get traction. Like I saw Airbnb for boats, like find a dock for your boat. And it, wasn't top 10, but it got a fair bit of comments and questions, and people were really interested. And maybe that's one thing that's getting pretty interesting. Like the outside the top 10 on the leaderboard is very interesting these days. Like a lot of products that are still quite inspired and well executed, but maybe more niche problems. It's almost like a different genre rather than like worse products, as some people might think.
Interesting. Yeah, I spend most of my time looking at the top ones, but I feel like it would be really interesting taking like a look at the ones that aren't aren't in the leaderboard.
We should do a segment. We should do like a segment in the newsletter.
Yeah,
A call out like deep dive.
yeah, that'd be really cool. And I'm sure tons of people ask you this, but do you have any kind of tips, any directions for folks who are looking to succeed on Product Hunt? Like, what are the things that people should know?
Hmm. Um. Yeah, I think there are like a few things that matter a lot. Uh, crisp tagline, like uh, make sure it's clear. That's the most common failure mode I see. Something we try to make it sound grand and it loses clarity. And test it with friends. Test it with friends who don't know what you're building. Uh, you want a good tight explainer video and assets. You want a good kind of maker comment. And then of course, like bring your community helps a lot as well. I think those are the main factors.
Yeah, totally. And I guess looking ahead, like, are you hoping to start a company again one day, or is it too far out? Too far out to even know?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think it's um, the hardest, most exciting thing I've encountered for me.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
what's really special about this opportunity for me is like um, sort of being parachuted in midway in a startup. Like I don't know how much people know about Product Hunt, but it was acquired by AngelList. But then a few years ago, an investor, Josh Buckley, spun it out and took on more investment. So it's independent, and it's we're a startup again. So it's an opportunity to like really swing big and try to open up a new chapter for Product Hunt. And that's pretty special and pretty rare to be given that opportunity, especially for a company that I have so much gratitude towards. So on one hand, I don't take it lightly. And on the other hand, like, I'm trying not to be too precious about where we are now and think about where we can unlock much more.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I mean, I'm a longtime Product Hunt fan. I think I was user number 1,880. So I've been
Amazing.
in there for a while, and plan to continue that.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, before we wrap up, do you have any advice for folks who maybe have left their company, shut down, I guess kind of how you ended things at Tandem. Do you, any advice for folks who are kind of going through something similar, um, and kind of transitioning into the next thing?
I would say if you can afford to take time. And I would recommend writing a shutdown post, even if it's just for yourself to just process. And then if you start looking for jobs and you feel like, I don't know what I'm good for, you're not alone. And it's just, I think that's just a symptom of your shape is very unusual and not everybody's going to value that, but some people will value it very, very highly. And you, you definitely know and can do way more than you could before you started the company. Like very few things in startups are guaranteed. Like outcomes aren't guaranteed. Traction isn't guaranteed. Fundraising isn't guaranteed. But one thing that is pretty much guaranteed is you're going to grow a lot. And I think it just takes a little bit of time to find the right fit for you to like realize.
Really. Well, thanks for being so open about your journey and talking about your latest play and what you're up to. I really appreciate you taking the time to share.
Thanks for doing this series. Like I wish this existed when I was searching.